America's two great pastimes collide on this podcast. It is baseball and making money. From the dog days of summer through the October Classic, Greg Bases Peterson's going to be free swinging at the betting board as he tries to hit a grand slam for your bankroll. Now here is GP.
A good Thursday to one and all, and welcome into MLB Overtime, the betting edition. Greg Peterson broadcasting from the Azuñia Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. We've got a terrific show for you as Joe Ostrowski of 670 The Score out there in beautiful Chicago going to be joining me in the second segment. Also hosts the show/podcast, the Early Odds Podcast, which is in conjunction with the Vegas Stats and Information Network, so we're going to have some fun there. In the final segment, I give you a side and total on every game on the Las Vegas betting board in a little something I like to call Touch 'em All. But first, you guys had a couple questions for me on Twitter, and you know what? I've got some answers.
So you have questions, and Greg may or may not have any insight into them, but let's dive into the Twitter mailbag.
We saw a bunch of close games yesterday, and a gentleman that goes by the name of Bills Fan in AZ, you can follow him on Twitter at ATTICA69 as @unit_D1. Quick question, semicolon. There have been 4/5 games or more where the run line team has won by only one run. Is this the expectation that the amount of run line victories will outweigh the times the run line team loses and doesn't cover? And my answer to you is absolutely. That's something else that you have to keep in mind is typically when you're laying the run line, you're typically mitigating juice as well. So say that you would have the Chicago Cubs yesterday. Instead of laying like a big price of 140 or more, instead you're taking the run line at even money. You're getting a little bit of a plus price. That's all included in there as well, because instead, if the Cubs would have lost outright, instead of losing that 1.4 units, you'd only lose 1 unit as well. So it's all about juice mitigation. It's all about trying to be able to get plus prices in the end. So that's exactly what it is. And yesterday was a very abnormal day. Of the 14 games on the MLB board, 8 were decided by one run. That is not normal at all. You take a look at most days, I would say like 2 games fall on one run. Sometimes you'll get 3, but for 8 runs to fall on one game was just absolutely unreal yesterday. In the long term, I do feel like there is value in betting run line instead of money line when you feel very confident. There are certain games where you just think that it's going to be a one-run game, and you obviously have to lay that like minus 130, minus 140. It's something I deal with all the time, but I do think that there is a lot of value in taking the run line. There are just some days where you're going to fall on the sword, and that's going to happen from time to time when you try to go out there and try to get some plus prices. And then we got another question. This one comes to us from a gentleman that goes by the Twitter handle @SuitedJoker. That is the word suited, J-O-K, the number 3R, goes by Joshua D @unit_D1. When do you typically see the MLB lines come out for the next day? And this one varies, typically offshore, because I'm out here on the West Coast in Pacific time. Offshore lines typically are up by right around 10:30 a.m. Pacific. At least they were yesterday. Some days vary. Some days it's more like 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, which would be more like 2 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific. But when you look at Vegas lines, typically they're going to be up by, the first ones at least, are going to be up by 1:30 p.m. Pacific, which would be 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes they're up a little bit earlier, like for today's slate, since there were fewer games. I noticed that a lot of places like CG Technologies and William Hill, typically the first 2 books to be able to get up their lines, they were up by noon, so it does vary a little bit by how big of a slate you have, but typically those are the times in which the lines are going to be up. Obviously, it's a little bit of give or take, and you want to be monitoring all those Don Best sites, Vegas Insider, and everything like that to see when the opening numbers are up, but that is a good rule of thumb that I typically go by. And then we did get one more question. This one comes to me from a gentleman named Tim Smith. He is on Twitter @SwipeTheDirt @unit_D1. How much, if at all, do you factor in umpire data when considering overs/unders? This is something that I don't really put a whole heck of a lot of stock into, just because you got to know that the players know a little bit about the umpire's zone as well. And I just feel like it is one of those things where both teams have to deal with it. I feel like the good pitchers will be able to get by, and the bad pitchers, well, they're just not going to be able to adjust. And you got to think that throughout the game, these pitchers are going to know their tendencies, and they're really going to adjust to them as well. So it's something that I really just don't look at too much. I look at more of the player stats and more of what what the players are doing rather than the umpires. I know that there are some people that swear that umpire data is gospel. I'm just not one of those people. I just don't get behind it. So it is one of those things that I know a lot of people use it, and if it works for you, good on you. It's just something that I really don't look a whole heck of a lot into. And then I did get one more. I thought that this was interesting. I think I said that the last one was going to be the last one, but you know what? I'm sorry. I just lied. This one comes to me from a gentleman by the name of Keith, and you can follow him on Twitter at real_Keith Evans. The name Keith Evans is all one word in between the underscore at @GNet_81. I know you don't do it, but I'm looking for your opinion. Do you think it would be profitable long term to bet on under a half run in the first inning on every single MLB game for the year? This is one where I've got to say you just can't bet something blindly. You have to take a look at it game by game. I had one of my good buddies at the Rec DGen who actually tweeted me some information on how they've been doing so far this year, and through the first 256 games of the year, this was going into Wednesday, the first inning under/no hit 131 times, which is 51.2%. Now, if you calculate that the juice is going to be minus 110 because it varies from place to place, you got to think that minus 110 would probably be the standard, because I was looking at the Westgate at the first yes-no prop, and it seemed like half of them were yes, half of them were no. Maybe you got a little bit more favorable juice on no, just a little bit, but if you wound up doing this for the entire year, and let's just say that you were laying minus 110 on each of these, you'd be down money, just because that magic number that you need to break even is right around 52.38%, I believe. It might be 52.36. I may have screwed that up, but all I know is that typically if you're 52.4 or greater, you're typically in the black. If you're laying 110 or greater, if you're below 52.4%, you're probably not doing so well. This is just something that I can't get behind. I am someone that I break down things situation by situation. I am not someone that I really like to be betting things blindly, and I just cannot get behind this. I would think that it would probably break even, because the general public likes to bet overs a little bit more than unders, and like I said, I was taking a look, and it seemed like the juice was a little bit less hefty on the unders than the overs, but I just can't think that for a full year this would be profitable, and if it is, it's going to be very, very slim, and it's not going to be worth your time, because you're going to be tying up so much bankroll in these first inning bets that you're not going to have as much to be able to play around with full game, first fives, and everything like that. So that's my approach on that. And you know what? I lied. I did get one more question, and I really need to answer this one because it is the most important question that I got. It is one that I had posed to me right when I was uploading my podcast last night. This comes in from Bruce Harris at JBruceHarris at @GNet_81. Do you ever sleep? Answer: no. Now let's get into what we saw yesterday, and let's see if we can find some bettable trends from yesterday's action.
What happened yesterday? Let's go around the bases and find out.
If you bet unders yesterday, you did a mighty fine job, as only 2 games yesterday went over the total. That includes the Mets versus Phillies game that stayed under, as Jake Arrieta looked really good for the Philadelphia Phillies. They were able to get the win in this one by a count of 3-2. Jake Arrieta looked like he was back in full form. He goes 8 innings, gives up 2 runs, only 3 strikeouts. He doesn't have the wipeout stuff that he's had in past years, but Cesar Hernandez and Sean Kingery were able to lead the Phillies to victory. Sean Kingery, by the way, now hitting .480, hit his second dinger of the year, and Hernandez went deep for his second of the year. Now, the Phillies bullpen still makes you very nervous, as they had the bases loaded, the Mets did, in the top of the 9th inning, but Hector Neris was able to do just enough to be able to get by and being able to get that save. Zach Wheeler, meanwhile, for the Mets, had a pretty decent outing himself. 7 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 3 walks. His ERA is now at .635. He seems to be rounding into form. And the Mets went 1 full inning without giving up a run from their bullpen, but obviously a very good sign for those that bet on the Phillies and Jake Arrieta. Corbin Burns needs to be demoted from the Milwaukee Brewers bullpen, and I always like to say his name in a bit of a old English accent as Corbin Burns went 3.1 innings for the Milwaukee Brewers. He alloweth 5 runs, all of which were earned in 3.1 innings. His battering mate, Yasmani Grandal, in this game wound up going 0 for 4, as he's now hitting .375 as on the battlefield. The St. Louis Cardinals got him in a sticky wicket, as it was Marcell Ozuna hitting his 8th home run of the year, and one Matt Carpenter, a.k.a. Carp, hit his 3rd home run of the year. Yeah, but we're good. Hopefully that's the last time I do that old English accent because it was absolutely awful. Now, if you are looking for some good news, if you're the Milwaukee Brewers, relief pitcher Aaron Wilkerson wound up hitting a home run, the first of his career, so well done there. It does seem like Mike Moustakas seems to be rounding into form. He had a double in this one. He's out hitting .231, as the team also is giving Ben Gamble a couple starts. He's been okay out there in the outfield, but for the St. Louis Cardinals, very encouraging signs as Paul Goldschmidt had 2 hits in this one. Paul DeJong went 4 of 5 as well. And Michael Wacha really rounded into form as well. In 6 innings pitch, he gave up 2 runs, only 1 walk that had been his big bugaboo all year long. That was big, and then the Cardinals bullpen winds up giving up 1 run in 3 innings. So good signs there for the Redbirds. The Kansas City Royals did not bring out Brad Boxberger, and it was the greatest thing they could have done because they wind up knocking out the White Sox by a count of 4-3. In this one, it was Hunter Dozier who is really getting hot for this team, hitting the winning home run for the Kansas City Royals, his 5th of the year. And it was marred by the whole Brad Keller versus Tim Anderson incident. Tim Anderson goes deep. His 4th of the year, he had the most emphatic bat flip of the year. Brad Keller plunks him with a pitch. It winds up that things were flying and everything like that, and Lucas Giolito, I'm sure, went out with an injury. I didn't see the first part of this game personally, but he went 2.2 innings, pitched only 40 balls, and he actually looked decent. He had 5 strikeouts in 2.2 innings, only allowed 1 walk, and then he was out of the game, so that meant that the White Sox really had to go to the pen for 7.1 innings, and the White Sox bullpen only gave up 2 earned runs. There were a couple of unearned runs. The Chicago White Sox continue to have fielding woes. They had 3 errors in this game. That's something that you really need to note. Tim Anderson, Jose Rondon, and Adam Engel all had errors. So that is something that you really got to note if you're ever betting on the White Sox. Their defense, probably the worst in the majors. A team that actually plays some pretty good defense, the Cincinnati Reds, they wound up falling to the LA Dodgers by a count of 3-2 in this one, as the Dodgers were able to get a little bit of power out of A.J. Pollock, a guy who had been struggling. He hit his 2nd home run of the year. It was a 3-run homer, and it was the difference in the game as Walker Buehler looked better in this game. 6.1 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 run, but it was unearned as the Dodgers themselves had 2 errors. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, it was Matt Kemp being able to drive in a run. He seems to be running the ship, but all in all for the Reds, they've got a bunch of guys that are not hitting. Their best hitter in the lineup today was actually their 2 catchers. Tucker Barnhart wound up getting a pinch hitting spot, and Kirk Casale currently hitting .304, so that is not an encouraging sign. And very interesting note here, Joey Votto popped up to the first baseman for the first time in his career. Over 6,000 at-bats. That is something that I find very weird. Something that's not so weird, the Yankees being able to get another win over the Boston Red Sox. They win this game by a count of 5-3. Brett Gardner wound up being the difference maker in this one. He wound up hitting a grand slam home run as it was the difference in the game. The Yankees were down 3-1 in the 7th inning. He hits that granny, and the Yankees are able to win by a count of 5-3. J.A. Happ, after a very rough start, he winds up giving up 3 runs in the first 2 innings, settled down 6.1 innings, gave up those 3 runs, gave up 2 dingers, but the bullpen from there was able to be nails for the New York Yankees. Good signs for the Boston Red Sox is that J.D. Martinez hit his 4th home run of the year, and then Vasquez was able to go deep for his 3rd of the year, but for the Red Sox, Nate Eovaldi looked terrific. He gave up 1 run, but that was unearned in 6 innings. But good old Brandon Workman wound up giving up 3 of those 4 runs as the Boston Red Sox bullpen winds up gas canning the game. If you're a Boston Red Sox fan, if it's not one thing, it's another. Jackie Bradley Jr. is hitting $158. Mookie Betts is hitting 200. Steve Pearce $125. Dustin Pedroia 100. Nunez 159. There are just so many things that are going around for the Red Sox. You've got to be fading this team until further notice. And hey, even though the Yankees are banged up, they're getting the job done. The Seattle Mariners streak of 20 straight games with a home run to start a season, a record in the MLB, came to an end as they were shut out by the Cleveland Indians 1-0. You got to be looking at unders with the Cleveland Indians in all honesty at this point. Carlos Carrasco, who had been very bad to start out the year, lowered his ERA to a 7.41 as he went 7 strong innings, gives up 3 hits, 12 strikeouts, and then Whitgren comes out of the bullpen for 2 innings and doesn't give up a single run. The Cleveland Indians, by the way, have a top 5 bullpen so far this year in regards to ERA. Eric Swanson, in his first career start, actually looked really good for the Seattle Mariners. Goes 6 innings, gives up 1 run, 5 Ks, but that 1 run was a dinger as Jake Bauers was able to hit his second home run of the year. Got to think that the Indians offense is going to be able to pick it up with Jason Kipnis and Carlos Gonzalez now in the lineup, and Jake Bauers starting to get things going as well. He had 2 of the 3 hits for the Cleveland Indians, as both teams had a combined 6 hits in this game. So I thought that was very intriguing. The Seattle Mariners might be coming back to earth with their offense. A team that hasn't had a lot of offense all year, but has just continued to get the job done time and time again is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They wind up knocking off the Detroit Tigers by a count of 3-2 in extra innings. Trevor Williams once again delivers a good start. 6 innings pitched, gives up 2 runs. And in this game, the hero for the Pirates was Colin Moran. He wound up having the go-ahead RBI in the 10th inning. And for the Detroit Tigers, their offense just really is not clicking right now. They just aren't being able to generate a lot of runs. But you got to like that Spencer Turnbull had a good, solid start in this one. He goes 6 innings, he gives up 1 run, one of which was unearned, by the way. And then the big concern for the Detroit Tigers is that their all-star from last year, Joe Jimenez, wound up giving up the lone earned run in, I guess you could call it the first 9 innings regulation time. And then Farmer comes in the 10th inning for a Detroit bullpen that had been very good all year long and gives up that RBI to Colin Moran. So I thought that was interesting. The Baltimore Orioles are back to scuffling. They wind up losing to the Tampa Bay Rays by a count of 8-1, and the Rays are now generating a lot of offense, as in this one, G-Man Choi hit his first home run of the year, Yandy Diaz his 4th of the campaign. They wound up being able to get Yoni Chirinos, giving this team a very quality outing, as he wound up going 5 innings, and he wound up not giving up a single run, so that was very good. And you're going to hear in my edition of Touch 'em All, because I already recorded it, that I was breaking down as if Yoni Chirinos was going to be the starting pitcher in this one, so just completely disregard that. I thought they were going to be going with an opener anyway. It seems like it's going to be Hunter Wood going in, and then you're going to have just a mismatch of players that are going to be pitching for the Tampa Bay Rays, so shouldn't affect much of what I'm going to be doing tomorrow in regards to the Orioles versus Rays game, because that game is off the board anyway, but I want to give you that disclaimer. But getting back to the offense of the Tampa Bay Rays, they wound up pounding out 13 hits, as in this one for the Baltimore Orioles, David Hess did not have a very good outing. 2 innings, gives up 6 runs, just completely unacceptable right there. So the Orioles back to being the Orioles, but hey, Rio Ruiz, his 2nd home run of the year. That's a little bit of a good sign. And a good sign for the Washington Nationals is that they were able to generate 9 runs against the San Francisco Giants, winning that game by a count of 9-6. Jeremy Hellickson had a nice start in this one, 5.2 innings, gives up 2 runs. He had 4 walks, which isn't necessarily redeeming, and then something that you really got to notice that the Washington Nationals bullpen continues to be bad. They give up 4 runs in 3.1 innings, so that is something that you got to note. And giving up all 4 of those runs was Austin Williams, who has an ERA of 162. Needless to say, hopefully he lowers that at some point, because that's not good. But in regards to the offense for the Washington Nationals, Howie Kendrick hit a home run, his 3rd of the year. Kurt Suzuki goes deep for his 2nd. Matt Adams, his 2nd of the year. And then Juan Soto, his 3rd of the year. They were playing a whole lot of long ball, as Jeff Samardzija got touched up bad. In 5 innings pitched, he gave up 2 of those home runs, 4 earned runs. And then it was the bullpen of the San Francisco Giants, which has been one of the better out there in the bigs, that gave up 2 of those home runs as well. Travis Bergen gave up 2 of those home runs, so not necessarily good for the San Francisco Giants, but something that was good, the pitching of the Chicago Cubs. Their bullpen has righted the ship. They wound up getting a shutout against Miami Marlins by a count of 6-0. Cole Hamels, 7 strong innings, 3 hits, no walks, 8 strikeouts. Brad Brock wound up giving them a nice inning as well. That is very encouraging for the Miami Marlins. They're just not getting any offense generated at this point. And Sandy Alcantara got touched up in this one as well. He gave up 5 earned runs in 6 innings. He's a guy with a lot of upside, but he just got dinged up by a Chicago Cubs team that really seems to be rounding into their own. Javi Baez hits a home run, his 6th of the year, back-to-back days with a home run for him. Jason Hayward, another RBI. Daniel Descalso continues to rake. He had 3 RBI. He's now hitting .364. This is a Cubs team that, after starting off, I believe it was 1-6, looking very good. I'm going to be talking to Joe Ostrowski about that in the next segment. The Arizona Diamondbacks wind up getting a 3-2 win over the Atlanta Braves in extra innings. For this one, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, the bullpen came up incredibly clutch. 4 innings of relief baseball, and it was a gentleman that we had some big questions with going into the year, Archie Bradley, that provided 2 strong innings for them. Adam Jones was able to hit a home run, his 5th of the year, and he also made the difference at the plate in the 10th inning, as his walk was actually what was able to give this team the win for the Atlanta Braves. They got a good quality start out of Kevin Gausman. 10 strikeouts, gives up 2 runs in 7 innings, but then Jesse Biddle winds up giving up that free pass with the bases loaded. He had 3 walks in 2/3 of an inning. The Atlanta Braves bullpen just not getting the job done at this point, and the bats were a little bit cool in this one. They just weren't able to get a lot of power, but you got to think that it's going to be coming back at some point. The Minnesota Twins were able to get back on track as they were able to get a 4-1 win over the Toronto Blue Jays. And for the Minnesota Twins, this was a game that was in a little bit of a rain delay to start out with, but you could tell that they were unaffected as Jake Odorizzi, a very good start in this one, goes 5.2 innings, gets 6 strikeouts, only 1 walk, gives up 1 run, and then from there, the bullpen pitches 3.1 innings of relief baseball. It seems as though Nelson Cruz is really finding his own. He had 2 RBI and 2 hits in this one. CJ Cron was able to drive in a run as well. That is much needed as he's only hitting 227 for the year. And Marwin Gonzalez got above 200, but for Trent Thornton, not a good start. He wound up getting touched up, 4.2 innings. He gives up 4 runs in this one. And for the Blue Jays, their offense continues to scuffle. They were able to get 8 hits in this one, but they were 1 of 1 with runners in scoring position despite being able to get 8 hits. That tells you right there that they just weren't making a lot of hard contact. A team that hasn't been making hard contact all year long, the LA Angels, they wind up falling to the Texas Rangers by a count of 5-4. Matt Harvey just did not put the team in a good position. 4.1 innings, gives up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, so a little bit of that was on the defense as he committed a throwing error, and Tommy LaSella wound up botching a ground ball as well. From there, the LA Angels were able to provide some good relief. 3.2 innings of no-run baseball there from the relief pitching, but the LA Angels, 1 of 10 with men in scoring position. That's just unacceptable right there. If there is a good sign, it is that Tommy LaSella, the guy that committed the error in this game, wound up hitting his 4th home run of the year, and they were able to generate 4 runs despite the fact that Mike Trout was just 1 of 3. But with that said, just still the Angels seem to be still having their issues. Lance Lynn had an okay start in this one, 5.2 innings, gives up 2 runs, and then from there, the Texas Rangers bullpen wound up being a little bit shaky. Jose Leclerc gave up a run in this one. We've noticed that he hasn't quite been the reliever that he was last year, and then Chris Martin also gave up a run, so that's something you want to note. The Texas Rangers bullpen has been falling back to earth a little bit, but how about Sin-Shu Chu? He was able to have a triple in this one. He had 2 RBI. He's now hitting .345. Joey Gallo continues to be Mr. All or Nothing. He had 3 strikeouts in this one, and the Rangers were able to do a very good job of just being able to drive him around and being able to get on base just in one form or fashion, and the errors of the LA Angels were able to help as well. And then the Astros had their 10-game win streak snapped by the Oakland A's to round things out for the night, as the Oakland A's were able to get a 2-1 win. The Houston Astros bats just were not able to get going. Michael Brantley with the lone RBI, and Wade Miley continues to be a good bet-on pitcher. 6 innings pitched, gives up 2 runs, only 1 strikeout. He didn't have a lot of flash, but one of those hits that he gave up was a Matt Chapman home run, his 6th of the year. That turned out to be the difference in the game as the A's were able to get some very good pitching out of Frankie Montas. He gives up 1 run in 6.1 innings. He seems to be a good bet-on pitcher. Lou Trevino and Blake Trine were able to close it out and were able to do a good job in the latter innings for the Oakland A's. They did not have available Fernando Rodney and Joaquim Soria as both of those guys pitched yesterday. That's something you always want to note as well with the A's, because the A's relievers like Trevino and Trine, terrific. Guys like Fernando Rodney and Joaquim Soria, not so much. So that's always something that you got to look for. And we need to watch out for some of these teams out there on the south side and the north side of Chicago. And telling us a little bit more about those teams next is going to be Joe Ostrowski of 670 The Score out there in Chicago, right here on MLB Overtime Betting.
Greg is going to the bullpen as he makes a call to the Azuñia hotline.
And we are back here on MLB Overtime Betting. Greg Peterson broadcasting from the Azuñia Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. Great pleasure to be joined by our next guest. He does tremendous work of the Early Odds podcast for the Vegas Stats and Information Network. He does a little bit of writing for The Athletic out there in Chicago. And he does a little bit of everything for 670 The Score. He does shows, he does updates, he does a little bit of everything. I actually think that he's the custodial service during the evening as well. It is Joe Ostrowski joining me. You can follow him on Twitter at Joe0670. And Joe, how are you today?
Doing great, G-Unit. Please don't add that to my plate. I don't need any more going on. Something else my wife will be mad about, taking another job now doing the custodial services over at 670 The Score. But no, things have been great, and especially in the betting world, you know how crazy it is. We're gearing towards, we're hoping for legalized sports betting in the state of Illinois, maybe in the next 6 weeks.
That would be terrific. And let me tell you, being a native of Wisconsin, it's very unfortunate that they're probably not going to get it for a very long time with all the tribal stuff around there. But something that is not unfortunate is the fact that the Cubs are getting a series win against Miami Marlins. Things seem to be trending in the right direction for the Chicago Cubs, who have really gotten the bullpen figured out. What have you noticed these last couple games for the Cubs? Because I noticed that in the beginning of the year, their bullpen was just wretched. But these past couple games, they've actually looked really good.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the bullpen. They got all the attention because they were in a lot of high-scoring games, so they're giving up the runs late, and people forget, oh, wait, we had a starter that lasted only 3 innings or 4 innings, or you're paying Yu Darvish $126 million to be your ace, and he's giving you absolutely nothing. Now people are saying, well, he's looking better. He got into the 6th inning. That's pretty good. No, that's not what they're paying him for. But to answer your question, Greg, of late, what's changed? They've taken the first 2 from Miami. They split a 2-gamer, and that was actually a positive thing against the Angels over the weekend because they didn't see Mike Trout. And in that 3rd game, if it wasn't postponed, they were going to be forced to throw Tyler Chatwood on the bump.
I saw that.
Yeah, there's some more bad money for you. They took 2 of 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But yes, the bullpen has improved. Joe Maddon has found a few guys that he can trust back there. We figured it would get back to that point, even though they're short some arms down there with Morrow starting out on the injured list. They're expecting him back at some point in the month of May, but really don't know. That's a guy that's been injured throughout his entire career. But there are guys that you can trust, like Strop and Kinsler and Steve Cishek, just to get by for right now. But there are some arms you just don't know what you're going to get from. But the big thing is, John Lester, their top starter, he's on the injured list right now. So they've been trying to get by without him. And of late, Cole Hamels and Jose Quintana have stepped up. That's been great. I mean, Quintana, 7 scoreless against Miami. Last start, 7 scoreless against Pittsburgh. Hamels was great against the Angels back on Friday. 1 run in 8 innings. So they have had a couple of their veterans step up. That's been huge with Lester out of the rotation. And they're hoping they don't have to go to Chatwood. They were able to avoid it on Sunday. The guy they would normally go to as their swing man, Mike Montgomery, has also been dealing with an injury. So the offense has been consistent, Greg, and you've seen this. You saw all the overs hitting early. The offense has not stopped. It's just been a bit of a surprise how they got there because Contreras and Jason Hayward are carrying the offense while Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and Kyle Schwarber have done bupkis this month.
Absolutely, as we've got Joe Ostrowski joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting, and I have noticed that, and even Anthony Rizzo is hitting below 200 right now. How is it that it's the lower guys, I guess you could call it, in the lineup that are really stepping up? Heck, even Bodie has been doing a pretty good job for this team, but the guys like Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant, they're just not delivering much right now.
Yeah, a little insight, a little behind the scenes here. Wilson Contreras, you go back a couple of years ago, he was viewed as a guy that's going to be a premier catcher in this league. And then last year, he makes the All-Star team, and he had no pop in the second half of the season. Power just completely gone. And he was straight up in the offseason. He gave multiple interviews, and he admitted that he stopped working last year. He was resting on his laurels, whatever he already accomplished, just relying on that. He said he stopped lifting weights completely. So this is a guy that was viewed as he's going to dominate for the next decade, and then he gave you nothing in the second half of the season. So he was a big bounce back candidate, and so far he's been there for them. And Jason Hayward, if you watch him now, maybe he's getting back to the Atlanta days. Remember, this is a guy at a time. He did have a 27 homer season. Maybe the change in hitting coach with Anthony Iapoce has helped. But if you just watch his hands, he's more still. He's not as jittery, and he's not knocking the ball into the ground like he was over the past few years. And the Cubs are on their third hitting coach in 3 seasons. With some guys willing to listen to the coaches, you can't tell me that isn't going to affect guys. Anthony Rizzo has had poor starts in the past. I'm not as worried about him. If you go year by year, his numbers are very consistent. He's going to hit close to 30 homers as long as he ends up playing the correct amount of games. Chris Bryant is where people are really concerned. Only one home run on the year, coming off all of these shoulder issues last year. He missed 60 games. The ones he was out there, he wasn't even completely healthy. That's the big question, because when he was out there at the end of last year, he was changing his swing, Greg, and he lost some of the pop that he did have. Is he 100% healthy? Cubs are saying yes. Theo Epstein's saying yes. We saw some pop in the spring, but in that Arizona air, that means absolutely nothing. So when is it going to happen at the major league level? Bryant is the concern with the offense, because if you don't have Bryant at that 5-6 WAR level, you're probably going to have issues. You can't rely on Contreras and Hayward to carry you all year. But I will say Baez has hit well this year too.
I do agree with you there, and the Cubs are right now below 500, but with that said, other than the Milwaukee Brewers, nobody's really running away with this NL Central. What is your overall outlook on the Cubs? Should it be DEFCON 5? Is it nothing really to be concerned about? Or do you think it's going to be somewhere in the middle and the Cubs might be in a wild card game once again this year?
After the 1-6 start, just over a week into the season, it got as close to DEFCON 5 that I've ever seen. And that was just barely into April. And that was the Cubs' own doing. That was them saying 2 out of 3 is not good enough. Because, of course, you remember as a Brewers fan a year ago, they end up losing the division by 1 game to Milwaukee. And that's been their mantra. Theo Epstein preaching all offseason. October is March. October is April. October is March. So it's been about urgency, and then they come out and they have that 1-6 awful start. But things have settled down a little bit. The win totals, as you know, taking a look before the season started, they had all those teams bunched up together. It was the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Brewers all together. And it looked like the Reds have improved record-wise. It doesn't say that yet, but I think overall they are a better ball club. This is a division that's going to be bunched up. The Brewers are out in front to start off, but I think it's going to be pretty close between the Cubs, the Brewers, and
Cardinals.
And, of course, the Cardinals. Yeah, that was actually my pick to win the division, the Cardinals, because of the pitching. But, I mean, last year, the Cubs did not win the division with 95 victories. If there's a team in this division that comes close to 95, they're running away with it. I don't think that's going to happen. High 80s, maybe 90 could get it done.
Oh, I agree with you there, as we do have Joe Ostrowski right here on the podcast. And then there is another team out there in the city of Chicago, and ironically enough, at the end of Tuesday's action, they had the same record as the Cubs in the Chicago White Sox. White Sox have actually got a pitcher that I love in Carlos Rodon. This is, in my opinion, one of my favorite pitchers to bet on. He has been terrific so far this year. The lineup, they've got some hit or miss guys. Let's be honest here. Yoan Moncada is great. Eloy Jimenez seems to be coming around. Tim Anderson hitting above 400. And then you got Daniel Polka, who's still looking for his first hit at the time of this broadcast. Adam Engel hitting below 150. Sanchez is hitting below 150. Yonder Alonso was able to go 4 for 4 on Tuesday against Kansas City to get righted. What have you made out of this team so far? Because I feel like with the Indians not really getting things going to start off the year, they could possibly be able to exceed their win total for the year and be a little bit of a surprise.
The division is completely up for grabs, and the division is complete trash for this year, and I don't think that's going to change at any point this season. I mean, Greg, listen to this 16-game stretch the White Sox are on right now. So they took their first 2 against Kansas City, then they go to Detroit for 4, then Baltimore for 3, come back home to face the Tigers 3 times, and then they're going to face the Orioles again. A 16-game stretch with KC, Detroit, Baltimore. I mean, that is awful. You've got to be able to eat some of those. But it's weird because they're in this space where it's about development, because they are in the start of year number 3 on the rebuild after making the big deals, trading Chris Sale, trading Jose Quintana, trading Adam Eaton too. That's how they got these good prospects. that they're hoping to develop. And it's, as bettors, we're just trying to look at that day. Are they going to win? Are they going to go over the run total? What is going to happen? But with the White Sox, it's really not about the record. It's weird. You say 7-9. Everybody in the city knows the Cubs are 7-9, but it might be a surprise to some. Oh yeah, the White Sox, they're 7-9. Okay, that's not a bad start, because most people are not paying attention to the record. It's all about the player development. You mentioned Carlos Rodon. Can you stay healthy? Can you get me 30 starts? Because that's all Sox fans are looking for out of him. Now, the rest of the rotation with Kopech out for the entire season, maybe Dylan Cease sees the Major League roster at some point this year. That was the second big piece they got in that Cubs trade with Jose Quintana. Because right now, as far as the future goes, Greg, year 3 in the rebuild, that rotation has one pitcher. When they're good, I think there's one guy, and it's the guy you just mentioned, Carlos Rodon, with his high strikeout rate. I mean, maybe Nova is a flip candidate. Irvin Santana has been lit up so far this year. If he does anything, maybe he's a flip candidate. Reynaldo Lopez, Lucas Giolito, younger guys in the rotation. Lucas Giolito led the American League in walks a year ago. Let's see what he can do. The guy ends up thinking too much. He's a very intelligent pitcher. He knows what he has to do, but he has a million things going through his brain when he's on the mound. And Reynaldo Lopez, walk rate also way too high, and the strike rate isn't high enough. So at times he'd go through stretches last year when it looked like he was pitching great. He had a wonderful start to the season, but if you're really watching the games, you're seeing, man, there were a lot of fly balls going to the warning track. Okay, he only gave up 1 or 2 runs, but man, the opposition was hitting the ball hard. So the rotation is rough. There's one guy you can really depend on as a workhorse. But the position players, it's all about Eloy Jimenez. He got the long-term contract, so there wasn't a service time issue. He had his breakout game on Friday, 2 home runs against the Yankees. He's had 6 multi-hit games, and I've been impressed so far. First time through the league, just learning these pitchers. They're going heavy slider action against him. This is what you see, peaks and valleys with a lot of these young prospects, and that's what Sox fans are going to see. Yoan Moncada, second full season. So far, the strike rate really down, and you see why he was the main piece in the Chris Sale trade coming over from Boston. And Tim Anderson, you touched on what he's doing so far this season. He's kind of forgotten about in this rebuild because it's always like, what's next? Who's the next great pitcher coming up? What about the next position player? Eloy, Moncada. And people forget about Tim Anderson. The White Sox were trying so hard to land Manny Machado, and they were just kind of going to play Tim Anderson wherever. But early on, it looks like he's having a big breakout season. He doesn't draw any walks, so let's see how it is for an entire year. But a few years back, they signed him to a long-term deal too.
Exactly. He has been terrific. And you bring up Irvin Santana. He is currently on the fade list of one Greg Peterson, and for very good reason. I think we would agree there. And Joe Ostrowski joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And outside the 2 Chicago teams, what have been some other takeaways that you've had so far in the baseball season? Since I know that you're dialed into the win totals, you do the early odds podcast and everything like that, because it's been a really interesting start to the season.
Yeah, it really has. As far as some teams that stand out, how could it not be the Boston Red Sox sitting in last place in the AL East? And it isn't just, small sample size. So there is that. But, Greg, at the moment, the run differential is minus 40. The only team in baseball that has a worse run differential is the Marlins at minus 43. We see this after a team goes on and wins the World Series, the struggles the next season. But boy, it's pretty extreme so far. Seattle, just the way they've been hitting, sitting in first place in the AL East. Cody Bellinger, I mean, he's got a Fangraphs WAR of nearly 2 already. Your guy, Christian Yelich, it hasn't stopped. Going into the year, count me in. Well, there's no way Yelich can do that again. And it just continues. He's looking like the National League MVP early on. Some of the younger players shining, Acuna, Tatis, and some of the aces. Mentioned the Red Sox and their struggles, Chris Sale and DeGrom having their issues. Greg, for people that want to throw it out there, I'm willing to listen. Is the baseball juiced? I know the weather has not been bad this April like it was a year ago, but through Monday, there were 48 home runs hit, putting baseball on pace for 6,372 homers. The all-time record is 6,105. So it would fly past the record if the home runs continue. I mean, even some no-name guys just crushing the baseball early.
I agree with you right there. We've seen so many overs so far this year in baseball, and I know that you talk about this and so much other great stuff on your podcast, the Early Odds Podcast. And Joe, I'd like to close it up with this. Where can the people find that? And where can the people find all of your other work for 670 The Score and you on social media?
Yeah, Early Odds Podcast actually turned into a radio show around the first of the year. So it's been great. People all in. So it's a Saturday morning sports betting show on 670 The Score in Chicago. And yeah, I host a lot of the evening shows and also on in the morning, doing some updates for the Mullion Hall Morning Show. But everything's out there on Twitter. I link my podcast there. Anytime I'm throwing out some sports betting info at Joe0670. That is at Joe0670.
Perfect. A big thanks to Joe Ostrowski for joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And coming up next, it is that time that I give you a side and total on every game on today's betting board as we touch them all.
Hey, I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who uttered the famous phrase, "That's gold." And that's the inspiration of my new podcast, That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We talk sports, sports betting, movies, comedy, food, drink, Vegas, music, movies, and more. 5 days a week. Did I say movies twice? Look, guys love it, whether they're hip or worried about breaking a hip. Find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and Stitcher. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
Welcome back to MLB Overtime. Greg is throwing a gem, so yeah, he better not blow it.
And a big thanks to Joe Ostrowski of the Early Odds show/podcast and also all the work that he's doing over there at 670 The Score in Chicago for joining me in the last segment as we are back here in the Azuñia Tequila Studios for MLB Overtime Betting. And now it is that time of the show in which I give you a side and total on every game on today's betting board as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Note that some of these plays are locked in, but I am in wait-and-see mode on quite a few of these. When I do lock these plays in, they will all be noted on my Twitter page at June_81, as well as any changes that may be made to today's plays. Very rarely does a change come up. Sometimes I will change a total if a bullpen has to get very badly extended or there just is really bad juice on a total or something like that. But typically, these things stay relatively the same. But we will start in betting rotation, and we start with 951, 952 on the betting rotation as the Arizona Diamondbacks are still in Atlanta to face off against the Braves. It is Luke Weaver going on the bump for the Arizona Diamondbacks. A little bit of a surprise starter here as this one was not announced until the afternoon as going for the Atlanta Braves is going to be Mike Soroka. Since the starter for the Braves was not announced until the afternoon, this game currently is not up on the board, so I do not have a side or total to be able to give you in regards to a locked-in play or anything like that, but I can tell you right now, I'm probably going to be looking at the Diamondbacks, and I'm probably going to be looking at the over in this spot. Mike Soroka is essentially going to be giving this team a spot start, and for his career, he hasn't been awful. I guess you could say he's 2-1 with the 3.51 ERA. Those were numbers from last year, though, but I just really have my questions with him. He hasn't necessarily been lights out in regards to AAA. He's being sent up for the start. You got to think that there's going to be a variety of guys that are going to be coming into this game from the Atlanta Braves bullpen, and the Atlanta Braves bullpen, let's face it, it's not very good. Meanwhile, if you take a look for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Luke Weaver has not necessarily been straight flames himself so far this season, as for the Arizona Diamondbacks, he's 0-1, 5.17 ERA. He's actually not got a terrible whip. 1.28 isn't great, but at the same time, it's not bad, and he's backed by a bunch of guys that are doing a great job of hitting. David Peralta hitting well above 300 so far this year. Christian Walker has been able to deliver some home runs. Adam Jones at the top of the lineup has been doing a great job of being able to get on base, and Luke Weaver himself has only issued 4 free passes in 15.2 innings, so he's actually done a decent job there. He's just been hit a little bit too hard with regards to the long ball, and that's something the Braves do well. Ronald Acuna Jr. has been one of the hottest hitters in the majors so far this year. He comes into Wednesday's action with 6 home runs, hitting .327, 14 RBI, and that was after a very slow start. Dansby Swanson entered into Wednesday with 18 RBI and 4 home runs himself. Freddie Freeman hitting above 300. Nick Markakis has really found it with the bat. Inciarte hasn't really been doing much, but Camargo seems to be picking it up as well. You've got a lot of good bats. I just think that the Braves bullpen is going to be taxed. If this total is 9 or less, I'm certainly going to be taking it over. And if I'm getting a plus price here with the Diamondbacks, I'm going to certainly have to go with that one. But like I said, there's currently no number on the board. So for set plays on this game, check back on my Twitter page in the morning at June_81. We move on to 9:53, 9:54 on the betting rotation, as it is the San Francisco Giants on the road facing off against the Washington Nationals. Patrick Corbin goes for the Nationals. Meanwhile, Drew Pomeranz on the bump for the Giants. If you like the Giants, you're getting a big plus price, anywhere between plus 180 and plus 185. Meanwhile, you want to lay with the Nats, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 200 and minus 210, and the total on this game is 8 shaded over. The over is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120, which makes the under between minus 105 and even money. The Giants certainly did not get the start that they wanted from Jeff Samardzija yesterday, and this is a team that, let's face it, they don't have a lot of guys that are hitting too well. But with that said, I actually do like what I've seen out of Drew Pomeranz so far this year. He was absolutely atrocious in his time with the Boston Red Sox, but he's actually found a little bit of something this year with the San Francisco Giants. He is 0-1 right now, but his ERA is a .386. He sometimes issues a couple too many free passes, but he does a good job of being able to limit hard contact. I do feel like the fact that he plays in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark is a little bit of a relief to him, and also being able to pitch the pitcher, but you know what? He seems to be dialing it a little bit more, and then when you take a look at Patrick Corbin, he's been doing a pretty good job so far this year with the Washington Nationals. He has not gotten a decision, but he has a .284 ERA. This is one in which I certainly do have to look at the under in this game, just because I do think that we're not going to see too many runs in this one, though the Washington Nationals have just a completely wretched bullpen. I do think that they're going to get a good 6 or 7 innings out of Patrick Corbin, which he gives up maybe a run or two, but I am going to be looking at this total under. I'm trying to see if this total ticks up maybe to 8.5 at this point, because I do notice that it is very heavily shaded to the over, but with that said, I'm going to be on the over regardless. I'm going to be on the under regardless, but I do think that this is a chance to be able to take a shot here with the San Francisco Giants, because even though they don't have a lot of guys that are hitting for average, they do have a couple guys that can hit a couple home runs. Brandon Belt has 4 home runs so far this year. We've seen Kevin Pillar pick it up with the bat. He's got 3 home runs in the last 7 days, so he's been doing a nice job there. He's got 13 RBI of his own. And at some point, you got to think that guys like Buster Posey and Evan Longoria are eventually going to hit for this team. You got to think that Brandon Crawford's going to get his average back up to 250. It's just a matter of time. They've been hitting some balls hard. They just haven't been finding the holes. And then with the Washington Nationals, I just mentioned how bad their bullpen is, and they've got a couple guys that are able to hit as well. I think that they're going to be able to scratch across 2 or 3 runs. Adam Eaton at the top of the lineup hitting above 300. Anthony Rendon hitting just below 400, and he's been doing a great job with the bat. He's got 6 home runs so far this year. Juan Soto has been picking it up. He was able to get 2 hits in his first 2 at-bats yesterday. Howie Kendrick has been great ever since he's gotten back in the lineup as well. And then Victor Robles at the bottom of the lineup hitting just below 300 himself. I do think that the Giants are going to be able to win this game in a little bit of a lower scoring matchup. I've already locked in the Giants with that massive plus price. I just feel like there's no value in being able to bet the Washington Nationals. They are just way too overvalued in my opinion. And I'm going to be playing this total under just in wait and see mode as to what number I'm going to be able to get on that under. We move on to 9:55, 9:56 on the betting rotation. It is the LA Dodgers, and they are on the road facing off against the Milwaukee Brewers. This might be my favorite name to say. Going on the bump for the LA Dodgers, Julio Arias. Yep, we put in there some extra emphasis. And now we go to the most generic name ever for the Milwaukee Brewers, Zach Davies. The total on this game is 9, and it is shaded over. See some 9.5s out there as well. If you like the over on 9, that is between minus 115 and minus 120. The under is between even money and minus 105. If you like the 9.5, the under is minus 120. The over is even. And if you like the Milwaukee Brewers, you're going to be getting anywhere between plus 102 and plus 105. If you want to lay it with the Dodgers, anywhere between minus 112 and minus 117. The Brewers did not get a quality start yesterday from Corbin Burns. Hopefully that is going to be his last start as a Milwaukee Brewer, but I actually think that Zach Davies is one of the most undervalued pitchers out there in the big leagues. He wasn't necessarily great last year just because he didn't pitch much last year, but 2 years ago, Zach Davies was actually a very good surprise for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was 17-9, had a 3.90 ERA that season, and this year, he's really found his form. He does have 6 walks in 17.2 innings. That's a little bit of a concern, but currently 2-0, 1.43 ERA. He lends himself to contact a little bit, but he's been limiting hard contact. That has been the big key. And for the LA Dodgers, they got exactly what they needed in that series against the Cincinnati Reds. They were able to sweep that series, and now they're on a 4-game win streak. And they've got possibly the hottest batter out there in the majors in Cody Bellinger. He enters into this game hitting .429, 9 home run, 23 RBI. He's been absolutely sensational. We all know what Justin Turner is able to do, but they do have a couple guys that are a little bit lighter hitting. You take a look at the LA Dodgers over the course of their 3-game sweep over the Reds. They only broke 4 runs in 1 game. They had 4 runs in the first game, they had 6 in the second, and then they had 3 yesterday. So it's not like the bats are necessarily cold, but they're certainly not on fire. Jock Peterson was able to hit 2 home runs in that series. That was huge, and being able to get A.J. Pollock a big home run yesterday was huge for him because he was in a little bit of a tailspin, but Kike Hernandez not hitting the same way that he was at the beginning of the year. Austin Verdugo, you got to think at some point is going to go a little bit cold, and Austin Barnes has already fallen back to earth. Meanwhile, with the Milwaukee Brewers, you've got a bunch of guys that are doing a great job of being able to rake for this team. Christian Yelich, 26 RBI, 9 home run, hitting .356. He is sensational. Yasmani Grandal hitting .375. Lorenzo Cain hitting just below 300. Ryan Braun has been sensational in the middle of the lineup. Jesus Aguilar, Travis Shaw, both those guys have been ice cold so far this year, but Mike Moustakas is starting to pick it up with the bat as well. This is a Milwaukee Brewers team that has been playing a lot of overs at home so far this year, and I think that they're going to be able to have another big game, and I think that they're going to be able to play another over in this game. I think that they're really going to get to Julio Urias. The last time Julio Urias took them out against the Milwaukee Brewers, he got shelled. I think the same is going to hold true here. So for that reason, I'm going to be on the Milwaukee Brewers, and I'm going to be on the over in this game. Currently waiting C mode on both these numbers, trying to see if I'm able to get more favorable juice on a 9, and trying to see if I can get a little bit of a better plus price on the Brewers, but going to be on both of those. Game 957, 958 on the betting rotation. We've got the Philadelphia Phillies on the road to face off against the Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland on the bump for the Rockies. Zach Eflin going for the Philadelphia Phillies. Total on this game is 10.5 and it's shaded over. Overs anywhere between minus 110 and minus 115. The unders anywhere between minus 110 and minus 105. If you like the Philadelphia Phillies, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 109 and minus 112. If you want to take a shot on the Rockies, you're going to get a little bit of a plus price depending on where you look. Anywhere between minus 103 and plus 101. I'm seeing a lot of even money out there as well. And this is a spot where I do think that Kyle Freeland's going to be able to get up off the mat, and he's going to be able to give the Rockies a very good start. He had a sub-3 ERA while pitching at Coors Field last year. That was absolutely terrific. So far, what's gotten him in trouble so far this year is the walks. And I do think that he's going to have a little bit of better command in this game. We are noticing the Rockies in general being able to pick things up. Nolan Arenado hitting 3 home runs in 3 straight days. Obviously a big boost to this Rockies lineup. They haven't necessarily been able to get Trevor Story to hit for average, but he seems to be getting a little bit more in lockstep as well. And with the Philadelphia Phillies, they were able to have a very nice series against the New York Mets, but even they were late hitting a little bit yesterday after they had that 10-run outburst in the first inning of their game on Tuesday. Maikel Franco has been terrific in the bottom of the lineup. He's got 6 home runs, 18 RBI so far this year. Gene Segura doing a nice job of being able to get on base. He's hitting .328 for the year. Rhys Hoskins missed a little bit of time in that last series, but he was able to come back into the lineup yesterday, and he was able to, at the very least, draw a walk. He went 0 for 3 in that game, so obviously he might be hampered a little bit, and you have to like what Sean Kingery is providing as well at the shortstop spot. He's hitting .480. Odubel Herrera and Bryce Harper seem to be in a little bit of a funk right now, so that is something that you want to note, and I think that Kyle Freeland is going to be able to take advantage of that. I certainly think that the Phillies aren't going to be held scoreless or anything like that, but I do think that the Rockies are going to be able to win a little bit of a lower scoring game. I know that this is a team that's a little bit banged up with the Rockies. David Dahl's currently on the 10-day injured list, along with Ryan McMahon, Ian Desmond currently day-to-day, and Noel Cuevas also on the 10-day injured list, but the bullpen has been very good for this team with guys like Seth Oberg, Wade Davis and company. They've been able to do a good job late in games, and I do think that with the Rockies, they're going to be able to generate a little bit of power with Mark Reynolds now seeing some more at-bats. He was able to hit a home run last week in a pinch hitting spot against the Giants. Garrett Hampson seems to be finally picking it up with the bat, and all of a sudden, hitting above 250, don't look now, but Ramel Tapia beginning to be able to hit for this Colorado Rockies team as well. I think that this is going to be a lower scoring game, so I'm going to take this total under right now and wait and see mode as to what kind of juice I'm going to be able to get on under 10.5. Perhaps this even goes to 11, but I'm going to be on the Rockies in this spot as well. I anticipate a little bit of money coming in on the Phillies, so trying to see if I could get the Rockies at a little bit more of a plus 105, plus 110 price. We move on to game number 959, 960 on the betting rotation. It is the Cincinnati Reds going to the West Coast to face off against the San Diego Padres. Chris Paddock goes for the Padres. Meanwhile, Tanner Roark on the bump for the Reds. Total in this game is 7.5 and is shaded under. Under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between even juice and minus 105. If you would like the San Diego Padres, going to be laying anywhere between minus 137 and minus 145. If you like the underdog in this spot, you're going to be getting anywhere between plus 125 and plus 130 with the Cincinnati Reds. Tanner Roark is just a guy that I cannot bet on at this point. And Chris Paddock, we had a couple guests on this podcast a few weeks ago that were really talking about his upside. So far, so good for Chris Paddock. In 3 starts so far this year, he's only went 14 innings, but he's got a 1.29 ERA. Opponents are hitting 130 off of him. He does have 6 walks in 14 innings. That's a little bit of a concern, but this guy has some tremendous stuff. Meanwhile, Tanner Roark, he was not good with the Washington Nationals last year. He has not gotten a decision so far this year, and he hasn't been awful. But at the same time, he hasn't really been good. And then with the Reds, this is a team that's just not hitting well right now. Dan Diedrich has 4 home runs at 11 RBI, but he's only hitting 200. Eugenio Suarez is hitting 250. Interesting note, Joey Votto popped up to the pitcher for the first time in his career. Over 6,000 at-bats, and it was his first time ever popping up to first base. I don't know how that's possible, but he himself so far this year only hitting 228. Yasiel Puig has been picking it up with the bat. He was able to have multiple home runs in the last 7 days. That's a good sign. And Matt Kemp has his average above 200, but even Jesse Winkler has been struggling with the bat a little bit. Jose Iglesias only hitting 243. This is a light-hitting Cincinnati Reds team. Meanwhile, you take a look at the San Diego Padres. Will Myers has been doing a great job for this team. 5 home runs, 9 RBI, and hitting 317 going into Wednesday's action. Fernando Tatis Jr. has 5 dingers himself. Hunter Renfroe going into Wednesday had 4 home runs too. And then with the San Diego Padres, you still have guys like Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer that you got to think are going to pick it up along with Ian Kinsler. So I just feel like they've got many more weapons. I'm going to be taking a look at the over in this spot, and I'm currently in wait and see mode to see if this dips down to more of a 7. So that way you have a little bit of added cushion in case if the Reds bats do not come out, because as we know, the Padres bullpen pretty darn good as well. But I have already locked in the Padres at a little bit of a favorite. I mean, obviously you don't want to be laying between minus 135 plus prices all the time, but this is a spot where I do think that the Padres should be able to win this game. So laying it here with the Padres, currently in wait and see mode on the over. Game 961, 962 on the betting rotation. The Chicago White Sox head to the Motor City to face off against the Detroit Tigers. Ivan Nova goes for the Chicago White Sox. For the Detroit Tigers, we've got good old to be announced, and what that means is that there is no number up on this board because there is no starter announced for the Detroit Tigers. And literally just before coming on with this broadcast, I was scouring all over the place trying to find who in the heck is going to be starting for the Tigers. I've still got nothing at this point, so it's really hard to give you analysis, but what I can tell you is that the White Sox do have some bats that are hitting quite well, and the White Sox have a couple bats that, well, they're not hitting well at all. Daniel Polka, hitting literally below .030 so far this year. He was able to get his first hit of the year against the Kansas City Royals. That's great, but Adam Engel still hitting below 200. What you got to say is that Tim Anderson, though he was involved in that scuffle, he had the bat flip and everything like that, he has been doing terrific for this team. He's hitting above 400. We saw him get that long ball yesterday, so you really have to like the upside that he is showing, but with this team, you've got so many feast or famine bats because Jose Abreu, we all know he's got great power, but he's right now hitting below the Mendoza line at 188. Yonder Alonso, he's hitting right at 200. Eloy Jimenez has been very up and down so far this year. Jose Rondon has actually been doing a good job of being able to hit for this team, but even Sanchez at the second base spot, not providing this team with a whole heck of a lot. But what I will say is Ivan Nova has actually been a pretty solid starter, and the White Sox seem to be getting a lot more out of their bullpen than they were at the beginning of the year. This bullpen was wretched to start out. They had guys like Fry and company that were doing just a terrible job for this team, but we're noticing that the White Sox bullpen starting to get a little bit more reliable, and the Tigers themselves have a very reliable bullpen. So you got to think that the Tigers are probably going to be using an opener and then just have a bunch of bullpen guys coming in, because I believe that it was Matt Moore that was supposed to be making this start. He is out for the year. So the Tigers going to be very thin in regards to their starting pitching, but they do have a bunch of capable arms of being able to hold down the fort. I just have absolutely nothing for you right now because I have no idea who's going to be starting for the Tigers. But with that said, probably going to lean towards the White Sox in this spot. Might lean towards an under because we know that the Detroit Tigers not getting a whole lot of hitting so far this year. Josh Harrison is hitting below 150 so far this year. Nick Castellanos has been picking up a little bit. He's hitting 255. Nico Goodrum, you got to think at some point is going to be able to get the home run ball going because he's been doing a good job of being able to generate doubles. He just hasn't been able to go deep. But Jose Candelario hitting below 230 right now. They've got Hicks back in the lineup at the catcher spot, but he's hitting just above the Mendoza line himself. And Christian Stewart just has not been able to get things going as well. And you can tell that Miguel Cabrera still trying to rehab from this injury. So right now in wait and see mode on this. I just have absolutely nothing for you guys. My apologies there. So check back in the morning for plays on this game as we move on to 963, 964 on the betting rotation. The Toronto Blue Jays are in Minnesota to face off against the Twins. Michael Pineda is going to be going on the mound for the Twins. Meanwhile, Clay Buchholz on the bump for the Toronto Blue Jays. Total in this game is 8.5, and it is shaded under. The under is minus 120, and the over is even. And we're seeing a couple 8s pop up as well. The over on the 8s is minus 115. The under is minus 105. And if you like the Toronto Blue Jays, you're going to be getting a nice plus price, anywhere between plus 155 and plus 161. The Minnesota Twins, anywhere between a minus 170 and minus 175 favorite. Michael Pineda has actually been pretty good so far this year. He's been doing a nice job in the starts that he's received, and it's going to be interesting with his pitching matchup because I really do have to take a look at the Toronto Blue Jays in this spot. Clay Buchholz, when he was with the Arizona Diamondbacks last year, was absolutely terrific. He got no decision in his first matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays, but he's got a 150 ERA, giving up only 1 run in that game. His command seems to be pretty good. He doesn't necessarily have the fastball that he did a few years ago, but he's done a very good job as a starter the past couple years. He's been a little bit more of a one-year guy, but he does a good job of just being able to provide professional innings. Meanwhile, with Pineda, as I was mentioning before, he is 2-0 with a 3 ERA. So far this year, he took the entire 2018 season off due to injury, and he looks like his normal self. He's issued only 2 walks in 15 innings. That has been very good for this team, and both these teams are a little bit light hitting. The Toronto Blue Jays, as a team, are only hitting 213 going into Wednesday's action. The Twins are hitting 266 themselves, but they're not hitting the ball out of the ballpark the way that many other teams have. Jorge Polanco has been doing a great job for this team, hitting 415. Guy like that, Eddie Rosario, has 4 home runs and 14 RBI himself. Max Kepler has been able to provide a trio of home runs, but you've got some very hit-or-miss bats out there for the Minnesota Twins. Jake Cave has not necessarily been doing a great job for this team. You also take a look at CJ Cron. He's hitting 220. Marwin Gonzalez hitting below the Mendoza line along with Castro. Byron Buxton has been a little bit of a nice surprise, but you've got some very streaky bats for this team. Meanwhile, with the Blue Jays, you just don't have a lot of offense being generated outside of Freddie Galvis, who's hit 5 home runs and is hitting 328 so far this year. Brandon Drury at the top of the lineup has been absolutely awful going into Wednesday. He was hitting a $140. And then you just don't know what you're going to be able to get out. Rowdy Tellez, he's hitting 205 with 3 home runs himself. McKinney has been picking it up a little bit with his bat, but he's hitting right around 200. Justin Smoke seems to be getting hot as well. But this is a spot where I certainly do have to take a look at the under. Currently in wait-and-see mode to see if I can get more favorable juice on under 8.5, and I'm looking at the Blue Jays in this spot as well. The bullpen hasn't necessarily been great for them, but it hasn't been too bad, and the Minnesota Twins have had a good bullpen so far this year, but I noticed that it's been failing them recently, and I do think that Clay Buchholz is actually going to be able to give a little bit of a better start than Michael Pineda in this spot as well. My plays on this game will be the Blue Jays and the under. I'm currently in wait-and-see mode on this game because just waiting for better numbers in general, so this is a little bit of a wait-and-see approach. Going to be going with the Blue Jays at a big plus price and going to be going with the under here. 965, 966 on the betting rotation. It is the Kansas City Royals on the road facing off against the New York Yankees. Domingo Germán goes for the New York Yankees. Homer Bailey for the Kansas City Royals. Total on this game is 9, and it is shaded over. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. If you like the Yankees, you're going to be having to lay minus 200. Meanwhile, if you want to take a shot on the Kansas City Royals, it is plus 180. And you can't pay me enough to bet on Homer Bailey. His teams are now 2-21 in his last 23 starts. He was incredibly able to pitch 7 shutout innings against the Cleveland Indians, and you know what that means because he had one good start before. It means he's probably going to be getting shelled in this one. I'm currently seeing a run line price of the New York Yankees at minus 105. That is currently what I'm looking at. I'm trying to see if this gets more to even juice, so that way I'm not paying any juice at all, but with that said, I am all about the Yankees, and I am all about the over in this spot. Currently trying to see if that over gets a 110 as well, but with the Kansas City Royals, they were able to get a nice win in Chicago yesterday in 10 innings, but they had to burn up quite a few bullpen arms because we all know about the fight. Essentially, their best pitcher, in Brad Keller, wound up getting thrown out of the game because he did hit Tim Beckham, so it was a very interesting situation there, and you know what that means. One of the relief arms that was not used yesterday, Brad Boxberger. Do you want to be betting on a combination of Homer Bailey and Brad Boxberger? No, sirree, Bob. And then with the New York Yankees, Domingo Germán has actually been showing a little bit of promise so far. He's not the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching or anything like that, but this is a guy that I think could give the Yankees 5 or 6 quality innings. So far this year, he's 3-0 with a 1.38 ERA, .77 whip. Been doing a better job of not being able to walk guys. And with the Royals, you've got a couple guys that are doing a good job of being able to get on base. Alex Gordon for the year hitting .339, 3 home run, 15 RBI. Hunter Dozier has really picked things up. He's hitting right around 300. He's been able to provide 5 dingers. Lucas Duda was able to pick things up as well. He had his second home run of the year on Tuesday, but he himself only hitting 200 so far this year. Chris Owings, Martin Maldonado, both hitting below the Mendoza line. Jorge Soler in the middle of the lineup, only hitting .221. Ryan O'Hearn not getting the job done. Meanwhile, with the New York Yankees, though they are banged up, and boy, are they badly banged up. You've got Gary Sanchez on the 10-day injured list. Giancarlo Stanton is banged up. Troy Tulowitzki's banged up. Didi Gregorius is banged up. But even with all that, DJ LeMahieu has been hitting well above 300 all year long. You've still got Aaron Judge. Luke Voigt is not hitting for average, but he's hitting for power. Gleyber Torres has been getting a little bit cold, but he's been doing a great job. Clint Frazier hitting above 300 for this team. Urshela at the third base spot has actually been a nice surprise as well. So this is a spot where I do have to look at the over, and I have to look at the Yankees run line. Currently in wait-and-see mode on both of these numbers, but going to be certainly playing both of them as we move on to yet another game that is off the board. It feels like it's just off the board Thursday, you guys. I'm sorry about this, but 967, 968. It is the Baltimore Orioles on the road facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays. Andrew Cashner going to be going on the bump for the Orioles. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Rays, Yoni Chirinos is going to be getting the start for them. Like I said, this game is off the board because Chirinos was not decided as the starter until the afternoon. And you can't think that Chirinos is going to be able to give a whole heck of a lot of innings in this spot. He's been a little bit of a spot starter for the past couple years for the Tampa Bay Rays. He made 7 starts last year, but you got to think that it's going to be a sort of a mismatch of players for the Rays. You take a look at what Chirinos has done this year. So far, he's appeared in 3 games, 2 of which have been starts, 14.1 innings. He's got a 4.40 ERA. He does a good job of being able to limit walks, but sometimes he gives up a little bit of hard contact, which could maybe lend itself a little bit more to an over. I think that if you see a total of less than 8, I'll probably take it over. If the total is greater than 8, I'm probably going to look under. I just feel like that's the way it goes with Tropicana Field, because Tropicana Field not necessarily a hitter's ballpark. And with the Baltimore Orioles, you've got a lineup that's full of guys that have a lot of power, but they don't necessarily hit for the greatest of average. Jonathan Villar does a good job of being able to get on, and Trey Mancini does a little bit of everything going into Wednesday. He was hitting .338 with 6 home runs and 12 RBI. Got to really like what he's been showing. I will say that Dwight Smith Jr. has been doing a great job of being able to provide some offense with the Orioles, and with the Rays, they've really been picking up with the bats as well. Through 4 innings against the Baltimore Orioles, they were able to provide 6 runs. That was absolutely huge for them, as Brandon Lowe was able to hit a home run in that game. G-Man Choi and Yandy Diaz also were able to provide long balls. And then Austin Meadows so far this year for the Tampa Bay Rays has been absolutely sensational. He is hitting .350 with 6 home runs and 17 RBI himself. G-Man Choi is a guy that I really like as well. And then you take a look at Brandon Lowe, I just mentioned. He's hitting right around 300. Kevin Kiermaier's been picking it up with the bat. This is probably a spot where I'm going to look at the Tampa Bay Rays run line. I just have a tough time being able to trust in Andrew Cashner, a.k.a. the Cash Burner. I know he's 3-1 so far this year, but that is very misleading, as he's got a 5.31 ERA, a whip of 1.62. He lends himself to a little bit too much hard contact. And I will say the Orioles bullpen has actually been better as of late. It's not saying a whole heck of a lot, but it has been better. And then catcher so far this year, 11 walks in 20.1 innings. Just not too many redeeming qualities there. So likely looking at Rays run line, and then the total all depends on the number that comes out. As we wrap it up with 969, 970 on the betting rotation. The Seattle Mariners are in Los Angeles to face off against the Angels. Chris Stratton goes out the bump for the Angels. Felix Hernandez for the Seattle Mariners, a.k.a. King Felix. Total in this game is 9, and it is shaded over. Over's anywhere between -120 and -125. The under's anywhere between even juice and +105. If you want to take a shot on the Seattle Mariners, you're getting a plus price anywhere between -102 and +105. Meanwhile, the Angels are between a -113 and -115 favorite. I know that Felix Hernandez isn't quite what he once was, but he's really been doing a better job of being able to locate, and he's just not getting hit as hard as he did last year. Last year, he had an ERA above 5. It was just absolutely awful what was happening to him. This year, he's 1-1, 4.38 ERA. Whip is still a little bit high at 1.38, but he's been doing a better job. And Chris Stratton, just not a guy that I want to be putting my chips in the basket with. 5.54 ERA. Last year, he also had an ERA above 5. He was not very good with the San Francisco Giants. He's not really got a lot of plus stuff. He's got 7 strikeouts in 13 innings to go with 10 walks. Opponents are hitting above 300 off of him. And with the Seattle Mariners, you've got a whole bunch of mashers. Going into Wednesday, Domingo Santana had 4 home runs and 24 RBI. Jay Bruce had gone deep 8 times so far this year. We all know what Daniel Vogelbach can do. He's been one of the best stories out there in the bigs, hitting over 300. He's been hitting home runs left and right. Tim Beckham has been doing a great job of being able to provide power for this team. We all know that Ryan Healy is a guy that can hit. Edwin Encarnacion doing a great job of hitting. Omar Narvaez hitting above 260. Malik Smith has not really been hitting for average, but he's been doing a good job of being able to find ways to get on base. But with that said, I do like the fact that with the Angels, you've got Mike Trout. He's hitting 5 home runs, 12 RBI. But past that, what do you really have with the LA Angels? I think that the LA Angels might be getting like 2 runs in this game, and they're both going to be coming off of Mike Trout's solo home runs. Let's be honest here, because Albert Pujols is not what he once was. He's hitting just above the Mendoza line. Daniel Fletcher has been doing a good job of being able to get on base for this team. I like what he's able to do, but Cole Calhoun hitting below 200, Justin Bour hitting below 200, Tommy La Stella hitting below 200, Zach Cozart and Peter Borges hitting below 100. It's just absolutely awful. And Dalton Simmons hitting just above the Mendoza line. Brandon Goodwin's been good. I'll give him that. He's hitting above 300. He's been able to hit a couple home runs. He's been nice for the Angels. But past that, this is essentially Mike Trout and absolutely nothing else in the lineup. So for that reason, I am on the Seattle Mariners with a plus price. And I've already locked this one in. And I am going to be on this total under. I was able to get the plus 105 on the under. And I've already locked that in as well. And that will do it for another terrific edition of MLB Overtime Betting, as I get to wrap this thing up a little bit fired up, and I absolutely love it. A big thanks to Joe Ostrowski for joining me in the second segment, doing tremendous work out there in Chicago. And if you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, you can subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. If you have a question for the podcast, feel free to tweet it in at @GUnit_81, and let's make today a successful, profitable, and fun one, and I'll talk at you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.
This is your before and after story. Instead of imagining a rewarding career in medical imaging, Southeastern College can actually take you there. Prepare for a career in ultrasound, radiology, and X-ray technology. With hands-on specialized training, simulations, and real-life experience with the latest imaging technology, you'll be ready to play a vital role on any healthcare team. Transform your life by helping others. Southeastern College. Your future is bright. Visit scc.edu to get started.